Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is Sarah Smith, and you're listening to Raw Intentions. I am sitting in a beautiful home, condo, I don't even know what you would call this, in Vail Village, looking at the mountains and the mud and the green trees and the sunshine. It is a stunning day. And we're here at Gravity Haus, which you will learn all about today because I have the founder of Gravity Haus on the podcast. So we're going to get into it. But before we do, just in case this is your first time listening, I'm going to give you my little elevator pitch because obviously I have a podcast. So I love talking about myself. Like I said in the intro, my name is Sarah Smith, Sarah with an H, Smith with a Y. I'm from Madison, Alabama, currently living in Breckenridge, Colorado, 30 years old, graduated from Auburn University in 2017 with a double major in Spanish and rehab disability studies. Thought I was going to do bilingual occupational therapy, kind of random, and did nothing that I planned as, the world works. I started making handmade jewelry while I was waitressing at Texas Roadhouse, and it just wasn't paying my non-existent bills and didn't really have daddy's credit card either, unfortunately, for young me. So started making handmade jewelry for my friends, for myself, for my coworkers. And what started as just a little side hustle out of my college apartment 8-9 years later is still my full-time job to this day. So it's called Raw and Rebellious. It's at raw_rebellious on Instagram. Definitely give us a follow if you don't already. We don't actually do jewelry anymore. We are a lifestyle brand. So we do clothing, hats, shoes, prints, custom work, wholesaling, retailing, pop-ups, meetups, retreats. I do influencing, content creation for other companies as well as my own. I have this podcast, a YouTube channel. I mean, it's as if I didn't already have enough on my plate already. I just keep adding more things. But this podcast has been so much fun. This is now my third year having Raw Intentions, and the purpose behind it was, from Raw and Rebellious and from my brand, I've cultivated this incredible community over the last almost decade. And I chat with y'all every day via DMs. I get to meet you guys in person at pop-ups and the events that we hold. And I wanted just a more authentic lifeline to communicate with y'all to that community. Not only to obviously talk about myself, but, turn my life experiences and mistakes and hardships and amazing positive things into lessons and relatable advice and conversations, as well as bringing incredibly inspiring people to my podcast. I am so lucky that I know so many people that I'm constantly inspired by, as well as have proximity to a lot of really, really amazing people. And that brings us to our very special guest this week. This week, we have Jim Deters on Raw Intentions. Jim is the founder of Gravity Haus, which if you live in, I was going to just say Colorado, but they've got locations in Colorado, Wyoming, California, Utah. They're opening one in Montana as they speak in Big Sky. So they're all over the place. So if you don't know Gravity Haus, if you ski or if you like nature and the outdoors, you should check them out because they've got locations in all of the best places, super affordable. And their story, I, as a user, I guess I would say, of Gravity Haus, I've always thought very highly of the facilities, of the locations, of the aesthetic of it all, but I didn't really know behind the scenes. I didn't know Jim. I didn't know his story. And it was such a powerful conversation. We take this conversation all over the place. Jim shares with us the early days, when he was a young 20-something living in Chicago, broke as hell, and bought a one-way ticket to Denver. He talks about his mental health, and all of his life experiences from the time he was born until now have really shaped the why behind so many of the companies that he started, because as many entrepreneurs, he is a serial entrepreneur and has founded and created so many powerful, impactful companies and businesses that are still impacting people to this day. He's a family man. We talk about his kids and about what it's like being a dad, entrepreneur. He gives so much advice. As he was talking, I was like, I should be taking notes on this. This is so powerful. But I feel so lucky to have these conversations, to get to call Jim a friend, and so stoked to see where his life takes him and where Gravity Haus will go next. But I'll let him tell his own story. Without further ado, let's welcome Jim Deters to Raw Intentions podcast. Well, no, you do have very good energy though, like very contagious, positive, light energy, I would say.
I hope so.
Yeah, you do.
One of my mottos in life is to go through life with as much positive energy and force as possible. I think that's just the right way to try to be as a human in the world. And I think that's honestly, as we talk about sort of aging in life, I think it's a harder and harder thing to do because I think there's a lot of momentum towards negativity and cynicism, particularly with everything that goes on in our complex, noisy world. And to stay a force of hope or energy or positive energy, I think is something that, yeah, and typically positive energy, energy attracts like energy,
Yeah,
and
sure.
hopefully it helps you surround yourself with other people who want to go through life with more joy and optimism and hope
Right.
instead of cycling down this never-ending cynicism spiral that can happen. It can happen.
Totally. Well, and I think that it's a practice.
It
You know,
is.
that's not something that you can just adapt overnight. That's something you really have to make an effort to do. Is that something you've always tried to instill, like from a young age? You're like, I see the glass half full, or is it something as you've aged that
Um,
is you've adopted?
I would
Because it sounds
say
very mindful to
it
me.
is. It's crazy mindful, right? And
Mm-hmm.
my wife and I were doing yoga way before core power
Uh-huh.
and
Before it was
everything
cool.
came. And when I was really young, I think living in the city and going through school and sort of that sort of early 20 transitions,
Mm-hmm.
there was a phase in my life where I was feeling like, I don't know, sort of all the stress and anticipation of the world. And it was really causing anxiety. And of course, back then we never spoke about anything regarding mental health,
Not at all. Yeah.
like at all.
It was
And
just something you probably kept to yourself.
100% I kept to
Yeah.
myself. And the more you keep it to yourself, the more you feel alone and trapped in this horrible cycle
Mm.
of anxiety and anticipation and all the other insecurities that reveal themselves, where am I good enough, am I making the right decisions, and what's going on. And I mean, to the point of I ended up in a emergency room in Chicago as a young man with
Wow.
with heart palpitations. And I don't know if I've ever, certainly never, spoken this story publicly.
Mm.
I probably have shared it with my kids at some point in time. And certainly I was always attracted to doing physical things. Like I knew that being active and taking care of my body was the right thing to do, although we don't necessarily do that in
Right.
our young 20s. And that
Not at
certainly was
all.
probably a factor in well-being at that time.
Yeah.
And I made this very conscious decision to build a mindfulness practice to really, because I remember the ER doctor telling me, like, dude, you're fine. He's like, you basically are stuck in first gear and your engine's running too hard. You just need
Okay.
to slow
Slow
it down.
down.
I remember
And
this
you're like, how do I do
this young
that?
ER doc just being like, it's literally
In your
in
head?
your head.
Mm.
And I'm like, wow, okay. And so, obviously this is 25 years ago at
Mm.
this point in time. Nobody was talking about mental health 25 years
No.
ago, like at all.
Right.
Zero. It wasn't any part of the social conscious of any part of society, really. And learning how to, be mindful and building wellness and just building a practice of gratitude
Mm.
certainly became part of my ethos in this massive shift as I matured and shaped my values about what I wanted to do and be in the world. But I
Yeah.
remember that moment in the ER going, wow, I'm fine. This is a mental thing.
In my head. Well, and
Yeah.
also, I mean, mental health wasn't spoken about, and like wellness and the industry of like health and wellness wasn't as much of a thing either, like it is now.
Not
Like
like
the resources that we have and the apps that you can download and the products you can buy and the gratitude journals, like you probably had to kind of construct this
no one
on
talked
your
about
own.
no one talked about that
No.
stuff. I mean, the only place you could find any sort of lessons or teachings in that was to go back to some of the Buddhist monks and some of their early readings and
Absolutely.
then going to, some of the earliest beginnings of yoga and the
Mm.
earliest beginnings of cycling classes
Mm.
were sort of the early foundation. If you go back to, again, I'm going all the way back to like the mid to late 90s when I was in
Right.
college in Chicago.
Right.
But it goes back to all the Stoics of living in these chaotic world and how do you become a peaceful mind in this world of noise and chaos.
Mm.
And no idea we would go down this route because I don't often speak in this regard, but it is an
Mm.
overarching factor of wellness and a big part of, living here and this view that I know everyone can't see, but we're surrounded by,
Can use your imagination.
30
These
foot pine
beautiful
trees. The
mountains.
Gore Creek is flowing literally just a few meters below us.
Yeah.
And in a somewhat snowy, now muddy mountainside. And I knew connecting with nature and other people was like a core to happiness and well-being. If you look at a lot of things I've done in my entrepreneur career, right, in my trajectory of building companies, one of the core themes that you'll see that run throughout them is this deep sense of wanting to belong, to fit in, right? If I were to look at a lot of our background of what inspires us, a lot of it probably comes from some early childhood insecurity. And I think
Mm.
one of the most basic human needs that we don't talk about for all well-being, including mental health, is a sense of, I belong here. Like, I can be part of this. We are social creatures by our very nature. And if you look at the trajectory of Gravity Haus now and what Galvanize was before that, one of the common threads was about giving people access to belonging, to giving them access to connection and community. And certainly this one for me, I know what fills my cup, my soul, is doing things outdoors, connecting with nature, usually with a family member, but it could be somebody I just met that we get to go on some adventurous ride on a bike
Like
ride
Noah
together,
Khan.
or skiing, or heli skiing with Noah Khan. I'd love to say Noah and I are best buddies now. Noah, if you ever listen, man, I am.
You know Noah's my number one listener. Come on. We go way back.
I'll text it to him. Heli skiing I did recently get to go to CMH heli skiing in a location called Galena, and sometimes I use this example like a backcountry hut trip or a heli skiing trip. I went on a heli skiing trip with Noah Khan and a bunch of other people. They're strangers. I mean, Noah's an anomaly because he's a incredibly famous singer-songwriter, of course, now.
Right.
But when you go into literally the middle of nowhere, British Columbia, Rocky Mountains, and you're hanging out in a helicopter, when you're in backcountry life-threatening situations that are also incredibly awe-inspiring and fun, and then you go back to the lodge and break bread and have drinks and you share stories, like those are some of the most powerful moments in life. And those connections, those bonds you make, doing something outdoors, usually physical, and then there where your family members are brand new friends. If I were to bottle up the secret sauce and the essence of what we try to aspire to at Gravity Haus, that's the whole essence of this entire company. Yes, do we run hotels and we have restaurants and gyms and amenities with cold plunges and saunas and classes and programming, but that's not the outcome. The outcome is this fulfillment of purpose, of connection, and helping people into that journey that they can belong in, which was very similar in Galvanize. I wanted to give people an on-ramp into entrepreneurship.
Sure.
I wanted them to feel like they too could be inspired to become a software engineer or to build a great company, because that's how you change the world, is you become a multiplier for entrepreneurs that want to create things, that see an opportunity to make a better world and deploy their time and energy and life and capital and to build something great. And to surround yourself with that, to be a catalyst, a galvanizer of that energy, man, that's fun. What other, if I were to leave this planet, right, to help have inspired and changed people's lives for the better, or an individual who bettered themselves, or an individual that came up with something that changes their community, or maybe something that literally has a positive impact on the planet, I don't know, that feels very purposeful.
Yeah.
Right. And so hopefully I'm drawing this common thread of community and connection. One was about being a multiplier for entrepreneurs and giving people access to skills. Another one is about really fulfilling this enriched life, like living our best, most purposeful life and giving people an on-ramp in a community to make that accessible and approachable, I think is a big deal, because a lot of this is not accessible and approachable, both by its very nature of the barriers of the cost, the barriers of learning a skill set, the barriers of learning where to go. And, this is my 27th ski season in Colorado. I think it's almost a bit of a responsibility for the lore of the region, those that have come before, to pass it on. And maybe that sounds like way too cheesy nostalgic.
No.
But I don't think so, because I think that's how heritage and culture makes people want to care for this planet, want to care for themselves. And ultimately, that's what I try to instill in raising my kids, with the same values and the same sort of lifestyle. And of course, now they've left Colorado and they're living in Manhattan.
Yeah. Different kinds of mountains, skyscrapers,
because people ask how, what was the impetus behind Gravity Haus or the inception? And I'm literally a manifestation of a lifestyle that my wife and I raised our children, and how I found purpose and meaning and mental well-being. And what really filled up my soul and made me feel purposeful was my time in the mountain. I mean, my best memories are doing stuff outdoors with my kids on a mountain, usually physical, skiing, hiking, climbing, rafting. It's the best.
Totally.
Those are my most treasured moments.
Yeah.
And to be a catalyst or a replicator of doing that for others is certainly what I hope people see as Gravity Haus, and not just a commodity of components or, you know, a beautiful hotel that's a box
Right.
with little boxes with beds in them. It's a definition of a commodity.
Yeah.
That's not why you know, that's not the purpose and then the why behind the brand.
Wow. I mean, and I agree with this. I have a very small clothing brand and it is very much an extension of myself. And from everything that you just said, it sounds like from so early on, and you said maybe that childlike insecurity of wanting to belong and struggling with your mental health and finding the space of wellness and, you know, studying Buddhism and Stoicism and finding your place in nature. You've taken all of your life experiences, including those with your wife, with your kids, and what you value most in this world. And you've created this like all encompassing, yeah, it's not just a box with little boxes in it. You're really creating change and you're creating lasting change generationally. I mean, I read this somewhere online. You wanted to make it more accessible for families maybe on the Front Range to bring their children to the outdoors and share that experience with them and creating community. And still, you know, we were talking about this before we started recording, is that first pitch deck that you had, it talking about experiences. And I'm not going to quote you because I'll misquote you, experiences being more important than things.
Yeah.
And even though, yes, you do own this very physical thing, it goes much beyond the thing.
Yeah.
The forefront of it is the experience, it sounds like.
At the end of the day, our collection of experiences in the community and connections that we have, I think that is our value, right? Like at the end of the day, and I hate using that expression, it's such a sort of venture capitalist like expression.
What is?
And that at the end of the day,
I don't know anything about it, so it's new to me.
Things don't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Experiences do. Our time with each other doing meaningful things, they really matter. And to move, and I think that I do believe that trend started in 2018 and was as relevant when I started the deck behind Gravity, you know, this sort of the manifesto I wrote behind Gravity Haus, which was about this, the thrill, the pursuit, the exertion of doing something in nature and all. But the underlying core premise is things don't matter. Experiences do. And of course, I think that became extremely more relevant to more people through the course of the pandemic, right? Where it's like, why am I doing these things? And your listenership and your demographic is a little bit more attuned than that, than me and your parents and other generations that were conditioned to try to follow a more traditional path.
Right.
And I was speaking about this with the coffee group just ahead of this, right? They're like, well, how did you know, how did you get into, it's like, how did you become an entrepreneur?
Right.
And a lot of it was by necessity. I had no choice to learn how to survive, to become resourceful, to figure out how to pay my way in college. And as I explained in 1998, which is when I graduated from college, the jobs that I was most interested in, and this probably feels weird, but if you go back that far in time, 25 years, if you didn't have an MBA, you weren't even going to get in the room to get a job. And I was done sitting in a classroom. I was done talking about theory. I wanted to go build things. I wanted to go create things. And fortunately or unfortunately for me, whatever, nobody was going to give me that opportunity. And I had to go make it for myself. And sort of similar, that became sort of the millennial generation. I chose a lifestyle before I chose a career. I chose pursuing a passion before I chose, I just want to make a bunch of money. I followed things that were intriguing to me. I bought a one-way ticket from Chicago to Denver, got off the airplane with a Burton snowboard and a Gary Fisher bike, none of which were very nice, and started creating software companies in the basement of a house in Washington Park. And that was 27 years ago. And that's my Colorado entrepreneurship journey. And now I had the opportunity to speak at South by Southwest and at conferences. I learned at a really young age, I was unemployable. Like there was no way I was going to have an idea and someone was going to tell me I'm not going to go try to make this happen, right? And entrepreneurship wasn't vogue in 1998.
Not at all. There were no classes on it.
No, actually, I did go through, I was at DePaul University and I was in their entrepreneurship program. It was one of a handful.
Oh, they had?
It was one of the first, which is why I went there. It was the closest big city to my middle of nowhere, Illinois hometown of 3,000 people, to the big city of Chicago. But they had an entrepreneurship program. The smartest kid in my class was going there. I'm like, I'll just go there. I literally put very little thought into it other than big city, entrepreneurship. I'm going to go to the big city.
Did you have entrepreneurs in your family? Or was this just something that you were like,
no,
why
see,
not?
Everybody says that. Like, oh, you must have come from a...
Well, yeah, because I didn't either.
No, you must have come from a big family of entrepreneurs. Like, no, I came from a, great family that raised me well. I mean, I had, my mom divorced my father at a young age and married this wonderful man that ultimately raised me and adopted me and had a wonderful upbringing post that. But I was born Jewish and then raised Catholic and baptized at like 8,
Wow.
9 years old. So that's a whole nother tangent of I've got Jew guilt and Catholic guilt. So hence why I build my own religion.
And you have a Jewish mother?
Yeah, oh yeah.
I have a Jewish mother.
Yes, I
do. She's probably listening to this.
She
doesn't know she doesn't know boundaries.
Well, it's a fun thing about progression of time in life, right? She learned all the crazy stories about my antics and learning how to be resourceful and survive through college. And my early days of entrepreneurship were simply a matter of, like, I think for many of us, it was just resourcefulness. I had to figure out how to survive.
Totally. And it was survival. Yeah. Like you
I
said.
had to learn how to pay my rent and pay my tuition and figure out how to eat. And, we started throwing parties.
like monetarily? Or?
We threw huge parties.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, I got kicked out of apartment after apartment all over Lincoln Park in Chicago. And if any of my fun friends that ever listen to this podcast,
they remember
we bought
days?
kegs and sold $5 and $10 cups, right? This is 27 years ago, right?
You're kidding.
But we used to throw, Lincoln Park in Chicago, the mid and late 90s in Chicago was a really fun time to be in Chicago. And we would throw huge house parties that ultimately graduated to throwing raves in 15,000 square foot warehouses. And that's how I paid my way. That's how I did traditional stuff too. So I law clerked. I worked for these estate planning attorneys. I actually was a lifeguard on 12th Street Beach in Chicago. Like I did everything.
Funny. Yeah.
And one of the questions was asked me earlier this morning was like, what would you recommend, or what advice do you give your kids, or would you recommend entrepreneurs? And it's the same thing I do tell my children. I'm like, look, the earlier you start taking risks, the easier it is, right? When I bought that one-way ticket, literally it's 40 hours after I graduated with my degrees from DePaul, I bought a one-way ticket to Denver because I wanted to live in the mountains. And this is why I was telling this funny story. I'm like, I was so naive, and a lot of great things start with naivete. People think that's negative. You got to be a little stupid. A little green.
If I was a little stupid, I wouldn't have done any of this.
That's what I'm saying. You
No way.
You wouldn't try any of it.
No.
And that's what I'm trying to say is like, you got to try. You got to experiment. You have to have the courage to be a beginner, to look a little stupid, to not get shit right, to fail.
Totally.
And that's
especially while you're young.
And when you do that, I had nothing to risk. I rented a whole house next to DU that I was paying for my little apartment in Chicago. Immediately got a dog, of course, because you live in Colorado, you have to have at least one dog.
Yeah, at least.
And I started creating software companies in the basement in Wash Park. And I always knew I could find a way to make money to pay my rent and feed myself and my dog. That's not super hard.
Yeah.
But why not go for it?
Why not build something?
When you have little liabilities, risks, it was me and my dog. I really had no children, no partner, no life partner. Like I was paying rent and feeding me and the dog.
Yeah. Easy peasy.
Easy peasy.
Totally.
Take some chances.
Yeah. Why not?
What do you have to lose?
Totally.
And you go for it. And the funny story I was saying, like how naive I was. And ultimately I was trying to break into at the time, Boulder was the tech scene. I couldn't crack that click as I entered. I had no idea. I would try to make meetings and bounce resumes, and nobody was really having it. The world was even more cliquey then. The tech world at that time is still very insular, right? It's not the behemoth of the industry it is at this point in time. And but I joke, like I came here for lifestyle, went to mountain bike, etc. There's no social media, there's no digital trail maps, there's no iPhone.
Yeah.
And so I literally get on my Gary Fisher bike. This is how stupid I am. I literally I'm dying to ride a single track trail, right? So I get on my Gary Fisher bike from my apartment in DU near Watch Park, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm going to ride to the trail. Well, here I am. I'm like, literally, what's the easiest westbound street? I think it might have been Colfax. And this is how crazy I am.
My God.
No helmet on my Gary Fisher with Tivas and cut off jean shorts. And I'm riding a fucking bike down Colfax Avenue for like 2 hours. I'm like, where the fuck are the mountains?
You're like, they're so really far away. You're like, how do I get there?
In like 2 hours in and dehydrated and no water and roasting out. I'm like,
you're like, so?
Because I didn't have a car, right? I lived in Chicago.
Yeah. Oh,
and I'm also a crazy, sustainable person, right? Like, I organized critical mass rides in Chicago. I don't know if you or your listeners know what that is, but
what is that?
We organized mega bike rides to clog streets. It was like a peaceful form of protest. We called them critical mass rides.
Wow. Does that still happen today?
I don't think so. I never hear anybody talk about it anymore.
Okay.
But, it was about getting for bike advocacy and bike lanes and for people I've been hit by 3 cars on a bike. I'm a huge biker, right? And so I moved here. I don't have a car. I'm in Denver without a car. I'm like,
it'll be fine.
I'm a young dude. I'll just ride my bike to the
mountains.
mountains.
Yeah.
And that's a really long way.
So it took you 2 hours to realize,
I'm like, I rode my bike everywhere. And of course, I thought I was reasonably young and fit, but not Colorado altitude trained yet.
Yeah.
And
you think you're fit till you move here.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And do any sport ever.
Until you're like humbled to death by your first experiences on the Colorado Trail. And I remember riding up Mount Falcon, for anybody who's in the Front Range. It's a cool local trail that's like a straight up 1,800-foot climb. And I remember riding my Gary Fisher mountain bike. I'm like, I'm on the trail. I think I hitched a ride from some dude I met on some group listserv, right? There was no way to, so I got a ride. I don't know exactly what his intentions were, but I made it out okay. And I remember riding up Mount Falcon, and I'm like cruising along. It's a steep climb. Yeah. And I'm like, and I look up, and this dude's passing me over my left shoulder, and he's probably, I mean, to me, he must have been like 70. He was probably like 50s or 60s. So
totally.
I'm like 23.
But to you, he's like ancient.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, humbled, couple, like about 30 seconds pass, riding along. Then his wife passes me.
And then they're like 6-year-old kid passes you.
Yeah. And I'm like,
you're like, fuck.
Not in Chicago anymore.
Yeah.
Look, like coming to Colorado is a huge part of my journey, right? This is where I fulfilled sort of the American dream, right? I pursued my passions for outdoors and trails and the environment, and have learned how to build a family and a life, and now in a company and business around it. And that's special, right? That's fun. I mean, that's sort of like their nirvana, to get to follow your passions and create a living and create a family and a lifestyle around that is I think is pretty cool. Not easy. And of course, nothing great
is easy.
And
but that's the naivete that we were talking about, of like, thank God you didn't know what was coming. Would you have done it?
I never would have started. I mean, I knew creating Gravity Haus would be pretty big, audacious journey. I don't, I mean, there's a few that probably, if I were to go back in time, like, I don't know if I want to go through that.
Yeah, you're like, I don't know if I would have done it if I knew next time.
I mean, keep in mind, the Breckenridge Hotel, which hopefully Gravity Haus Breckenridge, that was the first property.
Yeah.
That opened in December 16th of 2019. That was my first hotel.
Right.
I've been doing hotels for 5.5 years. I mean, I'm moving into my 6th year of hotels. I'm a tech guy. I built software companies and large system integration companies. Yeah. I didn't build hotel companies, but it's
very different.
Oh, incredibly different. And that first journey and foray was, really about sort of life decisions. And I married into my wife, who's Alicia, who's, grew up in the hospitality industry, went to the Culinary Institute of America. Yeah, this was a huge family pursuit, building this company together.
Wow, I assumed. I mean, it's hard not to.
The design and the construction management were on the backs of my wife, Alicia, and our great partner, Grady, who helped all the design that you see in our properties. I mean, it's been a very big, literally manifestation of our family and our family values of living this outdoor Colorado lifestyle, which I think resonates with your listeners here in Colorado and Denver, but hopefully in Alabama and
everywhere else.
And then everywhere else on the planet where you can stream digital bites, which is anywhere on the planet.
Yeah, exactly. but that's what's so great about this podcast, having everyone's peppered everywhere. We've got a big Colorado listening, but also, people from the Southeast that I'm sure dream of living in a place like this or visiting a place like this.
Yeah. Do we need to do any more backstory? I'm kind of jumped into parts of a story that I don't know how much.
Well, I was actually about to take you there, so leave that to the professional. Right. Don't you worry.
You lead with your awesome podcast voice.
I will lead with my awesome podcast voice. But I was about to take us back because, I mean, we've jumped all over the place, but that is the nature of a story, right? I mean, we're layered. We've got a million different parts, and it all kind of just comes together, which you have brought it around full circle. But moving out to Colorado and, doing tech out of your basement, to starting your first company, to meeting your wife. Maybe let's take it back there and talk about how that started, because you've always had this entrepreneurial spirit, and going from tech to hospitality, like you said, is a huge leap.
Yeah.
I want to know everything.
Yeah. Let's go there. It's pretty easy. I think it feels,
it
feels logical to me.
Yes.
One of my big entrepreneurial pursuits led me to building a really fun systems integrator. So, for listeners, that's a consultancy that builds software, right?
Okay.
So think of, we were one of IBM's biggest partners. So we take big IBM software and we have 1,000 engineers, software engineers and consultants that build some of the biggest e-commerce systems, back-end healthcare systems, to some of the biggest web and technology infrastructure in the world.
Wow.
I built one of the IBM's most premier systems integrators called Ascendant Technology. We were based in Austin, Texas. and had some amazing partners and just an amazing ride. And we went from 0 to 30 million in 3 years. We were number 13 on the Inc. 500 in 2007, which was a
Holy
really
shit.
fun year.
Yeah.
Because at the Inc. conference, the first iPhone was given out. So
Wow.
2007 was when the iPhone came out. Also in 2007 was the launch of EC2. Most people probably don't know what EC2 is anymore, but that's what was the beginning of Amazon Web Services. These are
Oh,
very,
okay.
2007 is a super pivotal point
Pivotal.
to a lot of things that have happened to many parts of our lives, right? The iPhone's a game changer.
Totally.
The ubiquity of cloud computing is a game changer. And I'll get to that in a second. But if you look at what Ascendant was, building technology and building these solutions it was crazy fun. But ultimately, what was so exciting about it to me, it's a talent game. It's a human capital. It's a human talent game at the end of the day. In not treating them like a resource, but literally like a humanity and investing in them and building that. At the end of the day, I was trying to sell my consultants are smarter than your consultants, right? Why would you hire me versus someone else? We can do it better, faster, cheaper. We're more fun to hang out. We take you out to better dinners, whatever, right?
You're doing a little dance.
Yeah, we did but that ultimately at the end of the day, it was still a super investment in learning skills. It was a learning skills, human improvement game. And inside that company, we built A-Tech University. And A-Tech University, this will be the precursor of how Galvanize manifests itself. A-Tech was, we were taking young college graduates and putting them through a 6-month boot camp code school to teach them the skill sets, the specific code and technology skill sets that we thought were in the highest demand that we can charge a premium for. We were literally in the talent game. And so now you'll probably be able to connect some dots with understanding why I was one of the first people building a code school and building one of the first private software engineering schools in the world, because I truly believe, if you get a little common thread of my background, that maybe you don't have to take the traditional route. Maybe you don't have to go through a 4-year computer science degree, or maybe you don't have the money or time to do that. But if you have the aptitude and drive, the grit to do something, why not give someone the access in a more accessible way to enter this world, to change their lives? I mean, we took coal miners from West Virginia, homeless people in the streets of Austin. In fact, this morning's presentation, there was a member who's a Galvanize member or Gravity Haus member who told me he went through the original data science program at Galvanize.
You're kidding.
And had an amazing career at KPMG and now is taking some time off. I mean, I would get hugs from moms in grocery stores that would recognize me. I get letters from parents of changing their kids' lives. Like, giving people access to skills and connections is super meaningful, right? The purpose behind that company was so profound.
Yeah.
It was so fun. I mean, it's a whole nother podcast on the series of mistakes I made that ended its sort of rise to its preeminence and success. But the impact, it still doesn't take away from all the amazing people that were part of that company and all the amazing lives that we helped improve. I ultimately thought we had so much more. And, one of the questions we talked about and was talked about this morning was scale. And scale to me is about impact, not just about scale for scale's sake or more for more sake. It's about scaling impact. And the more impact you have, the more lives you can change, the more people you can connect and enrich. That's meaningful. That's meaningful work. And doing that at scale is more impact.
It's more people. Yeah, you can impact.
You're impacting more lives. So back to, Ascendant ended up selling, was a huge success. But my wife and I, as I was getting a little bit bored with technology, and not necessarily bored, I needed a life change. Like, we traveled 250,000 miles a year. We had headquarters were in Austin, Texas. We had offices in Mumbai and Chennai, in Florianopolis, Brazil, in Belgrade in Serbia, in London. We were all over the world. We lived on airplanes. And
was your home base still Denver at this
I
point?
still lived in Denver.
Okay, technically.
Technically, I was, I wrote a blog post as I ended my career, ended that time there. And we ultimately had a great outcome and sold it. I wrote my first 1,000,000-mile journey because I did 1,000,000 miles on United building that company.
Wow.
And it was phenomenal. It was crazy. But I now had 3 children at home in Denver, and it was time to get off the road.
Okay.
It was time for me to, my 3rd kid, my son, was about to be born. So I was kind of going through this transition, and ultimately other paths of my partner in that company, who's 15 years older than me. It was his time to exit the company. Sure. He was the CEO. I was the president. I wanted to take more risk and go bigger. There's lots of people like, oh, entrepreneurs are crazy risky. I'm like, not all. And there's a point in time
where
when you taste success, sometimes you get like, I don't want to mess it up.
Yeah.
Like, I need to preserve this.
Keep
and
it.
I'm like, I'm young and I'm like, let's go fucking
let's
big.
keep going. Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I need to sell this before we fuck it up.
Yeah.
And hopefully I can be vulgar on your podcast.
You can say fuck. You can say whatever you want.
Okay, good. Because it wouldn't be me if I didn't.
It wouldn't be me if I didn't say it either.
Okay,
even my Jewish mother listening is used to it. She's fine. She was raised in New York. She's used to it.
Good. I don't want to offend any. I don't.
No, I promise you
we can
won't.
keep it PG if we want.
Nope, we are good.
So what happened was we ended up selling the company, and I was spending time in Denver. And my wife went to the CIA in Hart Park. Was a Culinary Institute grad. Did her master's at DU in hospitality, master's in real estate and construction management, and MBA in hospitality. And there was this conversation about always starting a restaurant with her friend who she went to culinary school, Lan Semenzma. And that was the birth of Cholan Bistro. So Lan would come visit every year because his friends lived in Denver. And we would say, hey, why don't we, they were like, we should start a restaurant one day. And I'm like, will you guys stop talking about it?
Let's just do it now.
And they're like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of fucking bored.
Yeah.
And
let's just do something. Come on.
And huzzah. We open up,
which is another entrepreneurial quality, is like just doing it. You'll always hear that.
At some point, you
have
to do it. You have to jump,
or someone else will,
and not just one foot or a toe. Like dip yourself.
You're cannonballing in.
Dip yourself in this shit.
Yeah,
jump.
Get in there.
If you don't jump, you never. I mean, one of my favorite authors wrote a book about regret. I haven't listened to that book, but you don't want to regret not going for it, right?
Totally.
Why not do it? And so I'm like, let's do it. And by the way, this is as we're heading into the Great Recession, right? So this is 2009. We're in the middle of the Great Recession, and we're open, but the timing of this is impeccable. If you know what happened in Denver's history, the tipping point of Denver's food scene was the opening of Cholan Bistro. And I don't say that with all the humility of all the great other players that all were entering the market at the same time. It was this amazing tipping point of Denver's food scene happened at that exact moment. We opened that restaurant, friends and family, October 1st, 2010. My wife went into labor. We had friends from all over the country come in.
Your wife went into labor that night?
That very night. My son was born at 3:00 in the morning, October 2nd, 2010. I remember high-fiving out of Cholan, not entirely sober. And like, going to have my son.
Yeah, you're like, let's do it. And your wife's like, ah.
That was a very long, very exhilarating day. And that journey became a really interesting inflection point, right? As I would say to any entrepreneur or your listeners, right? Like embrace these sort of in-betweens, like these transitions that happen in life. They're a huge opportunity to be open to new ideas, to explore and be curious and see what comes next. You don't necessarily have to force things, right? And from opening the restaurant, of course, now I have 3 children at home, and my wife's really the hospitality expert. And she's like, well, run the restaurant. I'm going to stay home with the, I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know.
What?
I don't know shit about running a restaurant, right? So here I am now, deeply getting steeped in the restaurant world, and obviously it goes on to be a great success. It's a Denver institution. Is to this day. We don't own it anymore. We sold it some time back.
Okay.
And, but that was my first foray into the hospitality world and going into business with my wife and partner, which is a whole. I mean, that's a whole nother podcast of
I'm sure
of building businesses with your significant other in life. And we'll be married 21 years now.
Congratulations!
So, thanks. And of course, we've been building Gravity Haus together as well, and of course, raising our 3 kids. So, but during that time in 2009, 2010, I'm hanging out in Denver. I'm bringing as many people into the restaurant. I ate like 5 meals a day at Cholan.
I bet.
I mean, it's just like the pure hustle. Like anybody knew, I'm like, where are you going? I'm like, we're going to Cholan.
Yeah.
Where do you want lunch? Cholan. Where are we going to dinner? Cholan. Where do you want happy hour? Cholan. Where are you going? Like, you gotta be
your own biggest fan.
You gotta be fucking crazy.
Totally. You gotta be crazy about it.
And if you're not, and I mentioned this earlier, I'll write a chapter in the entrepreneurship book about the brute force phase of building something, which is not necessarily super fun. Let's talk about the 0 to 1 startup phase. It's like, I can brute force almost anything. If you're smart enough and hardworking enough, you can almost grind anything out.
Yep.
I can make almost anything work.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it's meant to scale.
No. And that it will eventually work. However, you can in that moment make anything
You can
work.
grind and grind and grind, and you can probably get it to stand up. And
totally.
A lot of times that's what it takes. And then at some point you have to stop and say, and reflect is like, okay, I did it, but I went 0 to 1, but does this go from 1 to many or not? Or is it not really made to scale? And maybe the journey taught me a few things about myself and other things that maybe I don't want to do that anymore. And that's okay. there was an entrepreneur renaissance that was taking shape in 2010. So your generation, millennials were coming of employment age. At the same time, the Great Recession was happening. Jobs were getting sucked out of the market. There weren't jobs.
So
I needed
people
to
are
have an
creating their
MBA.
own.
You guys didn't have jobs. There was no employment market.
Yeah.
The employment market was the highest we probably have experienced in our lifetimes to date. And at the same time, back to the mention of 2007, by 2010, the iPhone and the App Store is now prolific, as well as tech ubiquity is. So the access to build a company now, anybody sitting in this room or a Starbucks anywhere in the world now has access to the same compute power as some of the biggest companies in the world. And that statement is exponentially more true to this day, right? I'm talking about this in 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And so what's your limiting factor now? It's your own
Yourself.
skill. What skills do you have? And then, of course, the age-old adage of who do you know, who can open doors, who can find you customers, and who might write your first check to invest in your idea, your company, your startup. And I kept using this word, like, someone needs to galvanize this community. Like, it's all fractured. I'm like meeting all these cool entrepreneurs and all these cool people. And I'm like, someone needs to galvanize this. And that was the impetus of Galvanize. And I'm like,
wow.
I'm like, I want to coalesce this and like make it more powerful, because an aggregation of people in closer proximity helps create advantages to learn from one another, to hire each other, to inspire each other, right? Again, this common thread of community and
that
connection.
sense of belonging.
And I mean, you could see that thread carry into Gravity Haus.
Totally.
That was like the whole, like, oh my God, I'm gonna galvanize it.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna buy a building and build a co-working space and a code
in
school.
Denver.
And this is all in Denver. And of course, then we built 8 of them around the country, from West Soho, Manhattan, to 2nd Street District, Austin, Boulder, of course, the financial district in Seattle. I mean, it was an amazing ride. We were building these modern campuses for entrepreneurship in software engineering and data science. And of course, we raised a venture fund to invest in it. And that was, back to the Ascendant story, right? I knew the human capital game. So building skill sets and code schools was something I'd already been doing in the early 2000s.
Yep.
And I just thought there was a better way, that education was getting too expensive and out of reach for too many people. And could we build a different on-ramp for them to get access to skills to enrich and improve their lives in a way that really didn't exist prior to that era of code schools and co-working coming of age?
Absolutely. And I mean, there was no like co-working spaces either. Like,
no,
this is before all of this.
Oh, this
so
is,
you were really creating.
We had 2 locations. We had one. I got to know Adam Newman. His college roommate actually is a Denver friend of mine. And he's like, hey, Adam would like to meet you. Would you like to hang out with Adam? And I mean, his stories and We Crashed is pretty public.
Okay.
Adam is legitimately great. Yeah. Adam Newman built WeWork.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I think I saw the documentary, and one of my roommates used to work there. So. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That was all in that era. A lot of crazy. There was an entrepreneurial explosion that happened out of the recession. It did. And maybe one will happen again out of...
I'm seeing it from COVID.
Already.
Just from this podcast. Like, so many people that I speak to, they lost their jobs, or they had a lot of time on their hands, or they were surviving.
Yeah.
And they created something else that is now their full-time job.
Resourceful.
Which is cool. And it also sounds like you were a part of, this entrepreneurial explosion the same way that you were part of this tech explosion with your first company, in 2007 and now in 2010, 2011.
I mean, being in the right place at the right time.
See, but I also think it's a lot of, if you do seem very like mindful, you've been on this journey for a long time, and it sounds like you've gotten to a place where you are very present and you can really notice whether it's your thoughts, things around you, and if you're not present, if you're living in the past or the future, you're not going to notice these things. You're not going to notice these needs from the community. You are so dialed into your own mind and to what's around you. I think that, talking about the big picture also comes back around and plays into you knowing when it is the right time to make Gravity Haus or any of your companies. It is cool to watch this unfold in front of me.
And it does sort of just unpack naturally. It's not something that kind of sit in the room like, oh my God, I got to come up with 10 ideas.
Calculated.
That's not how it's ever worked or manifested for me. And maybe that feels like a bit of a just signature strength or something I have, to be an observer, to be present and watch and study people and psychology and trends and coalesce around this is where the market's going.
Yep.
This is what I see happening. And maybe that, I studied economics in school, and maybe there's patterns or things, or maybe it's just a gift of being able to connect dots that maybe don't automatically connect for other people. And like just the intuition of like, I believed people were going to move towards the outdoors and not care more about collecting experiences as a
And
badge of
things.
even social currency more than perhaps their Louis Vuitton bag.
Yep.
For instance, of like, I'm going to go back to my apartment in the village and brag about getting to ski POW in Vail this weekend.
Exactly.
That's cooler than
a new pair of shoes.
I don't know. Like,
yeah.
look, I like who doesn't like some nice, cool sneaks or,
totally.
or rag and bone jeans, right? But whatever. At the end of the day, they're still just shit and anybody can buy that shit. But did everybody get to ski that POW day on President's Weekend? That was unbelievable.
Oh my God.
And go
unreal.
party. Like, I mean,
yeah.
like, I mean,
and that's what you take with you.
Hell yeah, you do. The jeans won't last more than 24 months.
See, what's funny is I joke with my boyfriend that I'm kind of like a cheap date. Like I don't really care about like nice restaurants or like design or anything.
Yeah.
But he's like, right, but didn't you just say you wanted to buy a new pair of uphill skis and you want to go on this ski trip to Japan next year or this hut trip or whatever? And I'm like, well, yeah, but that's priceless. It's different.
Yeah, we collect experiences.
Yes.
And some of that does come with being a bit of a gear
junkie. Yep, totally.
I mean, if you're an outdoor person, your quiver, your gear is like, as a reflection of who you are, right? It just having cool toys to make the experience better.
It's our inner child.
It enables and enriches the experience, which is part of being intimidating, part of the accessibility that we talked about around Gravity Haus. Those things are barriers to many people getting involved. Like, what should I buy? Like, I would love to try to do something upskill, but do I really want to buy $3,000 of new gear to try it and be like, oh, you know what? That fucking sucked.
Totally.
Like, I don't want to do that again.
Totally.
And by the way, that's okay.
Right. And that's the accessibility. I mean, my roommate last year bought an entire uphill set, did it a few times with me, hated it.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, oh, well, that's like $2,500 in the trash.
Yeah, we used to joke that they were $1,000 sports. I remember when I moved here earlier, it's like, oh, do you want another $1,000 habit? And now, obviously,
mountain biking, it's like a 10 grand habit.
It is. The sports and the equipment, and it just feels like it's getting harder and harder. And that was a big idea behind Gravity Haus is how do we build an on-ramp for people that care more about experiences and their wellness and believe this wellness connection with being and spending time outdoors with others being a really valuable part of their lives. And of course, having gear was part of that. And that's why we went through such great lengths to try to build our gear program, which that's a whole nother chapter in another podcast of lessons learned on unit economics and building things that don't really scale. They're really cool. A
cool idea.
It's a really cool idea, but the cost of underwriting it versus the cost of what we were charging for the product, the membership,
interesting,
majorly out of whack. And
well, because would this be the first business model that you've had thus far? And we can get into like, at the beginning stages, but that was like membership based. Or were your past ventures the same?
Galvanize was a similar membership program, right? People were students of the school, so they're literally paying tuition.
Sure.
And then we had members of the co-working space that were paying for co-working. So it wasn't exactly membership the way we built a true membership offering now with its perks and bonuses and privileges.
But it's all kind of building.
It's all building. And, that startup idea, that startup inception moment, I kind of call it the starburst of stuff that you come up with. And
I think as well as being open-minded to, having to shift from that original idea instead of being too attached to it.
Yeah. And you want to know what you want to know what the crazy dichotomy of that is. Like, I am the inception guy, right? I'm the founding spark.
Right.
And when you build people around you, my willingness to kill the babies, to kill the things that you think are religion and precious, I had all the wherewithal to do that. But the culture that was surround you sometimes is actually more dangerous because I had no problem killing my darlings, killing the babies. I'm like, oh, if it doesn't work. But then as you build a company that wraps itself around an idea and builds a really strong culture around it, it's amazing to me. One of the biggest lessons I've ever learned now building companies is I literally have no problem killing my darlings. I really, really don't, which might be unique from an entrepreneur perspective, as a founder perspective.
I think it's a great quality to have.
It is, but what you have to be careful of, the people that surround you, that are helping you build, that are your co-creators at the end of the day, that are helping you run the company. I can give two companies, Galvanize and through Gravity Haus, where I was the one saying change and the organization was fighting the change.
Interesting.
And that is phenomenal. Like, I'm like, it's not working. It was a great idea.
But let's pivot.
It's not working.
Yeah.
We need to pivot. And you know me now for a couple hours or so. Like, I'm extraordinarily open to change and flexibility. You'd be amazed how quickly even a young company can calcify around an original premise and not want to let it go. As much as me, the founder and the CEO, is saying it doesn't work, let's kill our babies. Others are like, no, we love that baby.
Yeah.
That baby's fucking cool.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, that baby doesn't fucking work.
And you're like, wait, what?
It doesn't scale. The unit economics are out of whack.
Right.
Like, it won't work. And we have to be intellectually honest and have the courage, both to ourselves, and here's the harder part, to our community and members who it's very public now as we're having to rehone and make changes to the product that we don't want to make. We're not trying to be bad people, right?
Totally.
But it literally won't scale. Like, it's insolvent direction to continue to offer an unlimited gear as a service, for instance. It was a brilliant idea.
Right.
Unfortunately, we'd have to charge
just not working
$1,000 a month to make it work.
Right.
And nobody wants to pay that.
Totally.
But if you want to pay $200 a month and have unlimited gear and access to $10,000 mountain bikes and $3,000 touring setups, the math doesn't work.
Right.
And making that change it's been hard, right? And people are like, well, we can't get rid of that. We can't get rid of it. I'm like, we have no choice but to figure out a more creative way to try to solve the problem, but drive the economics in line with something that actually will be scalable and durable and repeatable. And, I talked about this morning again. At the end of the day, business is really simple arithmetic. You do have to be able to sell. There was like a sales group that was coalescing. And I'm like, look, I actually love salespeople, and I'll tell you my sales story and sales lesson. But you need to be able to sell something to someone, extract their dollars for less than it costs you to create it.
Right.
Whether it's your hats, your t-shirts, or me selling somebody that can write Java back in the early 2000s.
Uh-huh.
And ultimately, what you sold it for and what you gave them, it hopefully cost you less to deliver it.
For
yeah,
you.
something at the end of the day is left over. It's
yes.
very, very basic,
as
simple.
Basic as it gets.
And I think as entrepreneurs in business, we like to make things like, oh, it's so complicated. No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's actually quite simple.
Right.
Are people buying your shit? Can you deliver it for less than what it costs
to make it?
It's that simple. And if you can, if that's out of whack, which was basically what I'm saying, but one major component of the offering originally was not going to work. We either had to reconfigure it or we'd have to raise the price extraordinarily dramatically. That was not really an option. The product market fit would sort of break down. If it's like, oh yeah, we got this great product, but it's $1,200 a month now.
Yeah.
And people are like,
well,
great,
actually,
now I can't pay my rent. I got great gear.
So I'm going to start sleeping here, actually, if you don't mind, because this is as much as my rent.
Maybe I can't afford that offering, right? There's just and that's just basic economics. That's the gravity of economic circumstances that every entrepreneur, as passionate as you are at the end of the day, you have to ground your business in something that's durable, repeatable, and has positive unit economics. And if you don't, it won't live.
Right.
It does not persist.
No, I think that's a lesson that I've had to learn as someone that I consider myself more of a creative than I do sometimes. I mean, I definitely am an entrepreneur, but like I never studied numbers. My dad's an engineer. He's taught himself accounting to be my CFO, which is incredible. And early on, he was like, look, bro, you're not making any money. And I know that I started with necklaces. He's like, I know you love the necklaces. I know you love the stuff that you're selling, but you're not making any money. So you either got to figure it out, figure out a way to make money off of that and make your costs lower than what you're selling it for.
Yeah, you got to raise your prices or make it for less.
Customers started when I was in college and I had no money and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, you're 26 years old now. Like they've got jobs. Like you got to charge more for your stuff or you can't just be giving things away for free because that's what you're doing. And that was a lesson that I had to learn very early on too with my career is we get so passionate as entrepreneurs because these are our babies. So I think the ability to pivot within your company and within your passion is so vital for the longevity of that idea, you know?
It's a natural maturing, right? You start with a spark of passion and, there's nothing wrong with using capitalism to solve problems. A business must persist to make, and it must have profits to reinvest in its people, to reinvest in its innovation. And somewhere along that journey, that switch has to happen.
Yeah.
And whether it's as simple as the lemonade stand, which I've used to teach my kids, like cost of goods sold.
Oh, totally.
How much did the lemons cost?
How much did
the sugar cost? Like, you got
little
college,
lessons.
Like, we made $30. I'm like, well, you used $28 in organic lemon juice and sugar from the house. Like, I don't know if that was the right math, of course. But you know what I mean? Like,
totally.
You got some cogs there, kiddo.
Yeah. They're like, Dad, what?
Yeah, cost of goods sold.
I'm rich. You're like, no, you're not.
No, you're not. I'm like, oh, you got to pay the house. Yeah. There's rent. Oh, wait. You had to rent that curb.
Oh, wait, you're 6.
You had to rent that part of the sidewalk.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't know the square footage, the cost. You didn't ask that.
Oh,
You
yeah.
gotta
And
ask
the poster
questions.
board and the markers and all those other inputs to build
You
your
show them the
marketing.
receipt, they can't even read it.
Yeah, those
read
are
that. They're like,
that's
what?
marketing stuff.
Yes, yes.
You know, I mean, we'll see how my kids either love or hate entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah, I'm sure. At
and,
least one of them statistically has to.
I would think. I mean, I used to go to our kids' parent-teacher conferences, and oftentimes my question I would ask is, "What do you know about my kid that I don't?" Because you spend a lot of time with them, right? They're at school more than they're at home with me. And I remember my kids went to Montessori school, which I think is a really great way to raise kids, by the way. And I'm not sure how many know about Maria Montessori and Montessori philosophy about independence. And it's a fascinating pedagogy that actually informed a lot of my ideas around how we built our curriculum and pedagogy at Galvanize.
Oh, okay.
About grouping with age groups and teaching independence. Like kids are grouped within 3 years of each other, and the older kids teach the younger kids.
Oh, interesting.
For any of the listeners who knows about Maria Montessori, she's awesome. My kids all went to Montessori school.
Okay.
But I would ask the Montessori teacher, my 18-year-old who's graduating high school here in a month, and I said, what do you know about my daughter that I don't know? And she's like, well, do you know she's constantly talking about this business idea and that business idea? And I'm like, no, I had actually no idea. Because she doesn't really talk about that at home. And I'm like, I just thought that was clearly, they've been around. I mean, my wife and I, particularly being partners in life and business, have had, the kids around constant. I mean, we joke because my son's in the car with me a lot of times. I'm on big phone calls and they're like, his name's Jake. They're like, Jake is getting like an MBA in middle school, right? But he did say to me the other day look, all these journeys are not easy, right? It's hard scaling a company. There's, learning how to move with positivity and grace, kind of how we started this thing through challenges. By the way, that is life. One of my core values of every company I build and live by is learning and growing. And what we always have to remember is that without struggle, there's no growth. You don't get one without the other. You have to go through a challenge, a struggle to grow, no different than building muscles and periodization, right? You work them and break them down and they get stronger. It's the same as we build skills and capabilities and things like that. But my son to me the other day, as we've been working through, some difficult transitions and scaling companies and losing people that were a really great fit in the early days that don't fit you in the future, it sucks.
Yeah.
It's the worst part of building companies.
I'm sure.
And he's like, I got off the phone. He's like, man, Dad, I don't know. Entrepreneurship seems really hard.
You're like, you think? You're like, so I've been making it look easy this entire time.
So maybe I scared him away.
Sure. He'll know too much, going into it.
I hope not.
Yeah.
But it's funny. I mean, of course, they're picking these things up, and
they're sponges.
And I've been able to let my kids have the opportunities to work in our. They've been baristas. They've worked at our front desk, and it's really cool to watch them. I think everybody should spend some time working in hospitality. I think it would make it probably better society.
My waitressing years shaped me fully.
100%. Everybody should do a little time in the kitchen as a server in a hotel.
Yep.
Even if it just makes them a little bit nicer to folks that already work in that industry.
Yeah, a little more understanding.
A little more understanding for humanity and people that are in the service business and service culture.
Totally.
And anyway, where do we want to go next?
Well, we've talked about your kids a little bit, but that's, as you said earlier, like one of the biggest accomplishments of your life. And I think from all the stalking that I did online, the way that you and your wife chose to raise your kids and the way that you wanted to prioritize experiences, all coming back to like your own personal ethos and nature and getting them outside. It sounded like Gravity Haus was born out of things that you wish that you had when you were raising your kids. And of course, the sense of community and the sense of the importance of experience. So I would love for you to talk a little bit about like the early days with your kids. You were an entrepreneur, you're running your business, which do you still have? So with Galvanize, do you still own that company?
No, it was sold
a while ago.
$190 million to a publicly traded company.
Well, cheers to that.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So,
that's another story.
So with that and running this business and then opening the restaurant with your wife, raising kids, I would love for you to talk about that transition a little bit and then going into how Gravity Haus, the idea was born from that.
Yeah. Well, anybody who, I'm not sure where people are in their entrepreneurship and life journey, but building companies is one of the most rewarding things I've ever done, right? It's so much fun. Have a group of people spending their life energy and passion and feel purpose and this group flow sense that can build when you're charging at problems and solving them. It's so much fun.
The high. Oh, yeah.
It is crazy high. And that, of course, many books and people can talk about the roller coaster. You'll go from the highest highs to the lowest lows, right? It's nothing from sheer terror to sheer elation at all points in time, right? And might happen within the same hour.
Totally.
Certainly within the same day.
Uh-huh.
And with all that said, right, being a dad and raising kids is by far the thing I'm most proud of. It's the greatest joy, hardest thing in life. And of course, for anybody out there who has kids, who's pursuing their passion around entrepreneurship and building businesses or their career, it's the hardest. There's nothing more difficult than trying to strike the winning on both sides. I'm purposely avoiding the word balance because it's a confusing word. And a lot of times things are not in balance. Sometimes your family has to take precedence and priority. And sometimes there's business pursuits and challenges that require more of your attention too. It's really about managing attention and managing your energy across that attention. And ultimately you need to, I hate to say, but you got to win at both, right? And this is what becomes really hard when I call them lose-lose situations. When you feel like you're put into a scenario where I'm not being a great partner to my spouse, I'm not being a good father, and I'm letting people down in the company because I'm stretched in all directions.
Right. So you're kind of doing a poor job at everything. Yeah.
That is the last 25 years, 27 years of building companies. I don't think there's a harder juggle for anybody out there doing it. Like, you're not alone.
Yeah.
It is fucking hard. And
you're taking yourself out of the equation in all of this too. You didn't even mention. That is.
Forget about of course, trying to maintain
your well-being,
your own well-being, and make sure you can maintain
a
state of mind and fitness and wellness while you're trying to make sure you can keep all the, I call them balls in the air, plate spinning. I said balls in the air the other. It's plate spinning and balls in the air. Yeah, it is I think one of the hardest challenges for anybody cursed with this entrepreneurship gene, and it is a curse. It is a blessing, of course, right? I'm being somewhat sarcastic, right? But trying to make sure you don't lose sight of things that ultimately matter, like the pursuit of things and learning how to scale that, letting things go and learning how to trust other people. Probably one of the biggest lessons in life is learning how to let go. I used to write on pages of books and notebooks, and I like to actually scribble old-fashioned ways. I type a lot, but I love having a pen and paper in my hand and writing and doodling and scribbling out ideas. And one, I was like, the more you let go, the more it will grow. And that's really hard for a lot of entrepreneurs, but it's a key. It's an absolute essential key to scale, is to let leaders take big chunks of control of businesses. Is really hard for a lot of founding leaders.
You're saying away from the founder.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gotcha. Delegating.
And my oldest, Chloe, I was going through a really hard period, right? And we had this cup, and I don't know if she bought it or I bought it or she gave it to me, but it was this yoga pose, and it said, let that shit go, right?
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes we hold on to shit a little too close. Things that we think are religion really aren't religion. And the things that are religion are our relationships with our family and with our partners and spouses, and that juggle over years and years. And of course, it has different phases from when kids are very young to when they're in their very active stage. Because obviously I'm transitioning to a whole new phase now as my kids are becoming their own young adults.
Yeah.
That's a whole, this is new for me.
Yeah.
I don't know the empty nest world, but I do know what it's like to have 3 kids very, very young and have 3 kids as athletes doing shit all over town and having 2 full-time. I know the chaos, right? And I look at some of my younger teammates and friends and colleagues going, oof, I know how incredibly hard it is to get through this.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's really hard. And a lot of my friends are starting their families in their young 40s, which I think is, there's pros and cons to that, of course. And there's no judgment. It is what it is. Right? Life and timing are what they are.
Right.
But now all the sort of unknowns of raising your kids, and are you helping instill the right values? Are you teaching them to be as resourceful as you are when they don't need to be?
Right. Are we just fucking them up?
Yeah. Are we totally fucking them up?
Totally.
Right? Are we doing too much? Are we making it too easy?
I think that's something that as I've gotten older, you get a different relationship with your parents. I'm sure you're experiencing that with your kids as they get older. And something you learn as now my friends are becoming parents is my parents had no idea what they were doing either. Yeah. Everyone is just trying to figure it out and doing the best that they can.
It is. And I want people to be okay with that, right? Everyone's fucking making it up.
Yeah.
Like we're
everyone.
We're not experts. Like,
no.
look, like,
and then you're meeting at night in your room with your spouse, and you're like, okay, well, that was fucking whack. Or like, was I too hard there? Like, should I have disciplined more? Or like, you have no idea. You're like, should we put him in timeout? Like,
yeah, I mean, no one taught us the roadmap. No one taught. I mean, we're the, look, Noah sings a song about. I mean, he sings lots of songs about this, right? To go back to Noah and
it all comes back to Noah.
It all comes back to Noah. We should end with some like in between the between villages. Yes, or something. We'll
do a little karaoke.
Can you do the soundtrack over this? Let's get some.
Yeah, we could fade out. It'd be beautiful. Yeah.
Obviously Noah sings a lot about mental health and his own relationship with his father. And I forget the one verse is like, we're still blaming our parents for what their parents did to them.
Yes,
I saw it as one of the verses in one of his songs. And, in many regards, we are a reflection of our parents. And for many of us, it's hard to break the cycle of, look, shitty parents that also didn't know what they were doing, right? And different generational things about, and that's what I mean by letting go. Like, don't be a victim to what your parents did to you. I even tell my own kids, I'm like, do not ever. And if you listen to this, kiddos, like, don't use me as an excuse for making stupid decisions. Like, it's your fucking life.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not your excuse. Like, am I perfect? Hell no. Have I made every right decision? Absolutely not. Am I going to probably make a lot more mistakes? Yeah.
Yeah.
We're human. But don't ever be a victim of my shitty parenting.
Wow. I love that, though.
And I think so many people want to hold on to this past of, oh, what was me? I had such horrible upbringing, this and that. Like, fuck. Let it go.
Yeah.
Move the fuck on.
It's your life now, and you're allowing that person to
be 100% accountable for everything you are and everything you do. And if you can click with that entirely, once you can cross over that I take 100% accountability for everything in my life, it is the most empowering thing anybody can be. Don't blame your circumstances, your boss, your mom, your dad, your sister, your uncle. Whatever fucking Trump said, who cares?
Exactly.
Doesn't matter.
Right.
Be accountable for your world, your energy, your choices, how you want to be on the planet and what you want to do next. Then give yourself the freedom to be human and make mistakes because you make them. That's how you grow. I think we're so always part of this like, oh, it's going to get easier or it's got to be less hard. It's not.
Right.
And the better you
get,
lean
into it.
The more shit you do and the bigger and more successful you become and this podcast becomes and Raw and Rebellious comes, guess what? It'll get harder. And hopefully you've prepared yourself to rise to that challenge because that is privilege. Pressure is privilege. Harder shit is privilege. That's because you're moving up.
Because you're moving up.
You're moving up. You're leveling up. You're going to the next thing. It doesn't fucking get easier.
No.
It actually gets harder.
Yeah, I know. And then you have more people depending on you and there's more money riding on things. But I mean, that's the beauty of the journey. And I'm sure you've experienced this where, I mean, this past year I've had some of the hardest business, periods of time that I've ever had. And I journal a lot and I'm very reflective and I'm looking back and I'm like, well, I remember 2 years ago going through something that wasn't really that hard, but it felt really hard at the time. And I got through that. Yeah. And then I grew. And now I'm going through this really hard thing. So I know that it's temporary and I know that I can let it go. And I know that it's only going to get better after this because I am going to move through this. I'm not going to give up. That'd be crazy.
Yeah.
And that's just, but I know also now that I'm past this time and I look back when I was really down and I got through that, I know how strong I am, but I also know the next hard thing is probably going to be even fucking harder.
It will.
But I'm going to get through it.
But you built more and more capacity, this resiliency, this to take on more, to learn more. I do think it's like a muscle. It's a capability you have to work and you have to be willing to embrace it. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's scary, but that's life. And I too have been through been a pretty challenging last year, 8 months.
Yeah.
For me too, both from a lot of tough challenges and business decisions, some life health issues with people close to me that were really, really hard last summer. And, I just kept saying, just be patient and positive. Things will time passes, things get better,
time
right? They will resolve. And
even if you feel like you're faking it, if you are miserable and sometimes
you do fake it.
Totally.
Go outside. I mean, honestly, every time I feel I start like we all do, right? There's like, oh my God, the world is folding in.
Everything is wrong. Yep.
Go outside.
Oh my God.
Literally, just walk for 10 minutes.
Once I start uphilling, I can't keep crying because I'm so out of breath.
Yeah, exactly.
My tears stop. Literally.
Eventually you'll dry out.
Totally. I've cried on a ski lift. I've cried walking to uphill, but once I start skiing down, the tears are drying and I'm like, I can't cry, or I'm just too out of breath.
I
And
mean,
thinking about something
everything seems to
else.
get back in perspective with some outdoor time,
Yes, moving your
moving, and
body,
again, going full circle again, movement, connection with outdoors. Like, I mean,
positivity.
it's really hard to be an unhappy person being outdoors in beautiful places, doing
Yep,
something physical with friends or alone. I do spend a great deal of time
same.
doing things alone, and I need my alone time.
I
And
do too.
that's I spoke to a huge group of people right before we did this, and I'm like, let me be clear, I'm actually not an extrovert. I mean, it was a
Yeah,
sales meeting. I'm like, this is actually hard for me.
yeah.
I had to build this capability over the last
The
30 years
skill.
to communicate like this, to be in front of audiences, to sit like you. But this, let me be real clear, this wears me the fuck down.
Totally.
Like, I have to go fill myself back up. And that's usually, not usually, it is outdoors doing something physical. And sometimes
Probably
for me,
alone.
it's alone.
Oh yeah, I'm the
Listening to
same
my own,
way.
listening to podcasts,
Uh-huh.
yours or others. I listened to a really good one on Acquired the other day. Yeah, I've been listening to Audible for years and years and
Yeah.
years now. But yeah, I listen to books. I go outside. I listen to Noah.
Yeah.
I ride my bike.
Oh, I listen to Noah all the time. Noah's
Um,
downloaded, so when I have no service and I'm camping, he's still playing.
I was listening to Noah while sitting shoulder to shoulder with him in a helicopter.
Are you
Noah, if you're
kidding?
listening, how cool is that?
That is
I'm like,
sick.
I'm just ripping a hole in the fucking universe. I'm
That
in a
is
helicopter with my
crazy.
AirPods in, and I'm literally shoulder to shoulder.
And you're looking
And
at him.
actually, I didn't want to like show him my phone that I was actually
You're like,
playing Busy
hey.
Head.
That is
Isn't that fucking hilarious?
But that's wild. That's such a universe. Yeah, that's
I mean,
crazy.
I get to be like a giddy kid with my kids, and I'll tell you something else weird. I actually listen to my kids have been away at school, right? My daughters, and I not make them. They share their playlists with me,
Yeah.
and I listen to all sorts of fucked up music
Insane
of their
music,
generation.
yeah.
But it makes me in this weird way. It makes me feel connected with them.
I love that.
Connected with them.
Yeah.
And some of it I really don't like.
Yeah.
But I'll work my way through it.
Yeah, totally.
But it makes this weird sort of connection to them because I don't, they live on other sides of the country right now, and I don't see them as often as I would love to. But
Right.
but yeah, and Noah's been a huge part of my middle daughter's journey through all of her high school things and all the parenting that comes with big breakups and first loves and all those things. I don't.
You were experiencing that for the first time too.
No one gave me the fucking manual on that one.
Totally.
And you just got to be there for your kids, right? And anyway, back to the kid things. Man, I love my kiddos, right? It's the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah.
And maybe I start a company with them one day. My wife's like, Alicia, like, when are you going to stop doing shit? I'm like, look, I'll probably never stop doing shit. I don't need to be the founder CEO of shit.
But you want to be a part of.
But I mean, my kids are like, I'm like, I'll start a company with you.
Totally.
Like,
what a dream that would be.
It is kind of a dream of mine one day. If they choose that, right? If they don't.
Of course, no pressure.
That's okay too. But it would be the coolest thing to me to like help my kiddos start a company or them and a group of friends.
Yeah.
I think it was Amelia, my senior this year. I'm like, well, hey, you want to come work for me for a little bit? She's like, no, I ain't gonna work for you. Just start my own thing. I'm like,
well, it's like what we were talking about earlier too.
I mean, they're just badass, confident women. Probably like you and a lot of the people that are probably listening to us hopefully talk. Like, you guys are a bunch of badass, strong women. And trust me, if you meet my wife one day, my wife's a badass. And of course, we've raised like crazy, confident, strong women. And
I love that.
And that is such a fulfilling thing to watch them turn into these badass young women, adults that are carving their ways. And of course, they're going to make their mistakes and they're going to have their heartbreaks and things like that. And hopefully I didn't fuck up my son.
Yeah.
That's what my wife said. She's like, you raised him. I raised the girl.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
You're like, oh God, this one's on me.
The one who broke his back this season on a over-rotated backflip skiing.
Oh God.
He's fine. I mean, he's recovered since then, so he's okay.
Oh God. Yeah. I mean,
Kiddos.
I mean, I'm sure though that they've had just the most incredible life, and hearing your daughter, you offering her a job and her saying, I don't need you, I'm going to do my own thing.
Yeah, she's like,
is that not like such a, like you turn on, you're like, yes.
No, it's like, seriously,
what a cool, small, she probably didn't even think about it, but what a cool moment for you.
Not at all. She's like, whatever, I'm going to do my own thing. I'm like, rock on.
and your kids did they not play a role in this idea for Gravity Haus and where we're sitting today?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, when we opened up Breckenridge, I mean, literally it was our lifestyle, like raising them to love nature. I mean, the founding tenets I wanted people to ask themselves said, is it good for you? Is it good for the planet? Does it create an amazing experience? And that's kind of how we live our lives. Like, make a choice that is nourishing your body. Make a choice that's hopefully in line with sustainability. and also make a choice that it's hopefully cool and fun
Yeah.
and amazing. And literally the early inception story around the fitness was my daughter, actually, my whole family, we're all athletes and they're actually collegiate soccer players. And my oldest got severely injured in a soccer accident, broke her tib fib and her growth plate.
Oh,
And I was
God.
getting super disenchanted with youth sports about how they'd run these poor kids into the ground and they weren't teaching them how to care for their bodies, how to
And
prehab,
endurance.
how to rehab, and how
Yeah.
to functionally train so they could help prevent injury. Voila, that's the inception of Dryland as a core fitness component of our health and wellness.
Ah.
Dryland came out of swimming, and swimmers knew that it was their works in the gym that help prevent injury and create performance when they're in the pool. Hockey players have adopted it. Skier players
I was
adopted
gonna say,
it.
yeah, skiing
It's
is
become more of a thing of like the work I do in the gym to be more resilient and prevent injury when I'm out
more
performing.
fit for a sport.
And so my daughter's journey of getting hurt when I launched the original Dryland was predominantly because I saw a need to solve a problem where I couldn't find a place where these kids could learn how to train properly. And of course, at the time I was crossing into my young 40s and I'm like, I'm doing this all wrong. Like my generation was like cardio, cardio, cardio,
Yep.
like, do more cardio. And like, I'm like, I don't feel like I'm getting stronger. I don't
Right.
feel better. I don't feel like I'm performing better. And of course, I start going deep and listening to books and experts and meet a bunch of cool people. And we start building what becomes the foundation of our health and wellness around Dryland Fitness and Dryland Procreating, which is all, functional fitness training, both, super relevant to, teenage athletes as well as adults who want to perform just in life, to feel great, to be able to go and ski and ride bikes and do fun things. And that moment was a core foundation. And of course, I wanted a reason to move in the mountains too.
Yeah. You're like looking for an excuse.
Yeah. And it was, I wanted a reason to get in the mountains full time. And then after building Galvanize, I had this idea of building this outdoor lifestyle hotel concept and making it more accessible, both in terms of a place to stay, making it more affordable, not building an ultra luxury hotel, which was all the money in these towns. Everyone's building really expensive hotels.
Totally.
Like what's going on in Big Sky and our new Big Sky property. Like we want to build something that normal people could go to.
Accessibility.
Yeah. That we don't have to have $1,200 a night. And by the way, why spend $1,200 a night when you should, like, hopefully you're not hanging out in your room watching Netflix. Like,
totally, you're outside.
You're outside doing fun shit, having amazing experiences and hanging out, doing shot skis and partying in the bars if that's your thing or whatever. Like you're not coming here to sit why spend all your money on an expensive room?
To just sit there, yeah.
You're coming here to create moments and connect with nature and people and building that authenticity of a brand. I mean, literally everything around raising my kids and family led to the entire idea. And then, of course, there's all these other macroeconomic components that we're playing into market dynamics and mountain resorts, hospitality.
Maybe some gaps you saw.
Yeah, huge gaps in what we call high barrier leisure markets, to use hotel industry speak, right? These are irreplaceable assets in unbelievable locations.
Yeah.
And we were super lucky to be in the right place at the right time to be able to buy a bunch of these things. I know we haven't gone a ton down like the whole inception story around Gravity Haus, but yeah, my kids and how my wife, Alicia, and I raised our children, it was the kernel of the whole Colorado lifestyle. And I knew how hard it was even when I did it a long time ago. When our first daughter was born, when Chloe was born, I'm like, we're never going to go to the mountains because it's so hard. Like, I'm like, I got to be able to buy a house.
Yeah.
And back then I could buy a starter house in Blue River and Breckenridge for, I think we probably paid $600,000. I don't remember exactly the number, but that's not, you can't do that anymore.
No.
There's no such thing as
you can't even buy a house in Denver for that.
Yeah, there's not a starter mountain house anymore, right?
Nope.
Like you can't do it. And so to have a place that people can come to and be accessible, and not just for the box with the bed, but to connect with people, also to have great coffee, to know that you're nourishing your body with great food, and just all the ways that we choose to live our lives and the values that we've raised our children are manifested in this beautiful brand that I think also came of age of shit doesn't matter and experiences do, and we should care for our planet, we should care for our bodies, we should care what goes in it, we should know what goes in it, and we should know what we're doing and how it impacts the world. And that to me is how we raised our children. And that's all the kernels, the core of the brand that built this thing. And that obviously we want to continue to perpetuate at a bigger and bigger impact.
Sure. Well, and you're scaling it. I mean, you have so many, you started with Breckenridge. That was your first location in what, 2018, 2019?
2019.
Okay. Yeah. And now how many locations do you guys have?
I'll see if I can do them in order. We're about ready to open our 9th.
Yep.
And a Denver clubhouse, which I don't know if you have Denver users. We're about ready to build some really cool things in Denver, which has always been part of the plan. But Breck was first. It was Breckenridge, Vail, Winter Park, then Truckee, California. Then I think it was Steamboat, Moab, Jackson Hole. Big Sky is opening this summer. We have the Aspen Clubhouse, Aspen House.
That just got finished. It's
Just
stunning.
finished, just opened.
I was there. I
You were
saw
there.
it. Oh,
We
incredible.
did a pop-up with you.
Yes,
We'll talk more pop-up retail stuff for everybody. Hopefully we'll do some cool stuff
Totally.
at Gravity
some
Haus
collabs,
with Sarah. And then, we have a huge chunk of members that are in Denver, in the Denver metro area. And we've had like a pop-up fitness inside of Nurture for the last
I know Nurture.
over 3 years we've been there.
I didn't realize that was y'all.
Yeah, we have like 360 members that work out there all the time.
Yeah.
But that's coming to an end. That was kind of like a pop-up phase because the first version I was talking about before was actually on Helly Street across the street from my kid's school. Because I built our private little gym.
Okay.
And COVID kind of killed it. It's not where our members were. It's a startup story of we built the original Dryland Fitness and Unravel Coffee was on Helly in Florida across from the Montessori School at Denver where my kids went to school. Just to let you know how much lifestyle I bring into, like, when I say this is literally part of our life, I'm not.
And an extension of you and what you're going through at the time and where you are. Yeah.
Exactly. So we finally are building out a full 10,000 square foot fitness, yoga, thermal recovery, co-working space in a building on Platt Street. So right across the bridges at 1644 Platt will be our Denver clubhouse. And that's so we can have all these members can have, there's a lot of folks. We have 650 members or so here in Vail. And a lot of them live in Avon, right? They're here every day.
Yeah.
Like I'm here every day.
Right.
But in Denver, if you can't get to the mountains every day, we want to make sure we had connectivity and accessibility. It's kind of like the one membership to rule them all. Like what membership can you get? Fitness, co-working, hotel discounts, gear, access to 9 locations around Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, and Montana, and get some of the best fitness yoga programming, connect with cool people and cool events and accessibility to figure out how to do, the Crested Butte to Aspen hike we do every summer, all the bike rides and fun events and pop-ups with cool brands like yourself. And yeah, so that will be opening the first phase of it on May 5th.
Wow, that's so exciting. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, we have almost 2,000 members in Denver, and hopefully this will be the first template of us having a more completely brand amenitized component set down in, the Lohi of Denver.
Sure. Well, and it's like that funnel effect of like, starting there where that's where everyone's commuting from.
Exactly. And hopefully we can do some cool stuff and have like a cool party bus that just, try to, again, take some of the friction out of getting more accessible up here. Because I know a lot of our friends and listeners, they're still unfortunately trapped down in Denver. No, I'm joking. Right? Look, it took me 42 years to get to Vail full time.
Totally.
42 years.
It takes a while.
I was 42 before I was able to get here. And I too did the I-70, no different than, why we bought a place in Breck. Because when we had our daughter, I'm like, we're never going to get to the mountains anymore.
Yeah.
We're not going to want to drive on I-70 and schlep the gear and schlep back and forth.
With everyone else.
Staying in hotels and different hotels sucks. There's not cool hotels in Breckenridge at the time. So I'm like, we got to buy a place. And that's how we ended up buying our first place in Breckenridge. And yeah, we want to make it accessible and fun. And even like the ride up, if we can put carpools or a party van and people don't have to worry about driving or traffic and you're going to hang out with cool people and pop out in Breck.
Totally. And then community.
Yeah. And then you could plug in with cool people. And of course, core to this brand was to be a component inside the community because we want to be authentic to the market, right? Like when I travel to places anywhere in the world, I don't want to go where the tourists go.
Yeah.
I want to hang where the insiders go.
Yep.
I want to be a local, at least, touch and feel and see what the locals are up to.
Right.
I'm clearly not going to be a local if I'm visiting for a handful of days or a week. You really don't understand the inner workings of a place. I think the statistic is you have to visit a place more than 7 times before it really becomes familiar and known to you. And how many of you get to go to the same place 7 times? I mean, actually here in Denver, we do because we might want to go to Breck 7 times or we go to Vail 7 or Moab. And to make it easier for people to have that consistency of, I know the people are going to be cool. I know the room's going to be cool. I know the coffee's going to be cool. I'll run into other cool people. I'll find maybe a new trail or somewhere else to go or make a new friend. Like we talk about at Boto in our restaurant. It's such a small, fun, intimate locals place.
Such
like
cool
you'll show up as a bunch of strangers.
Yeah.
There's no way you'll leave this place without meeting 3 new people.
No.
It's not possible.
Yes.
And
I mean, by sheer proximity, but also like the energy of it completely.
And that to me, those are the type of experiences I want to go to. Like traditional luxury to me is boring, right?
Stuffy, yeah.
Yeah, it actually in many ways it doesn't even feel comfortable to me. It doesn't feel warm, it doesn't feel inviting. There's no sense of community. It's traditional in the sense like it's rich finishes and nice sheets and who cares? I mean,
nor does it promote connectivity at all.
Not at all because that's not what
it's like the opposite.
It's Honestly, it's the exact opposite in the rigidity even of the level of service.
Yep.
I mean, so as we're trying to shape this brand and sort of redefine luxury around helping people create connections and community, and then, like I like to say, like your adventure is our luxury. Like I don't care. Like, yes, we want the rooms are going to be beautiful and nice, but that's not
Sure.
ultimately why you're here. I don't believe so. Anyway.
Yeah.
And it's ultimately why you're,
more.
at the end of the day, if you come for great fitness classes and the cold plunge and the sauna, those are amenities. You're going to stick around from the connections you make and the cool people you do find and the experiences that you'll do. That's what'll make this, that's the sticky part, right?
Yep.
That's the intangible, real value of taking something that's really a commodity and enriching it with emotion and connection that makes something really special. No different than what Howard Schultz did with coffee. It's so funny because I listened to the podcast they did. Howard Schultz acquired, and he is a great guy, but I always rail Starbucks.
Yeah.
So my friend, but what he speaks about and his values and how he cared for people and how he obsessed about the experience in the shop, it's super noble, right? And I think Unravel Coffee, we're a third wave brand, not making a dent in the Starbucks world. No worry, Starbucks team. We're not impacting your business.
Wipe that sweat off your brow.
I am not trying to take your business.
but it really does come from like all of the small moments and the small interactions. And as you continue to build new locations, I know all of these components are really important to you to make sure that you're still, and you're kind of morphing to each community. You're not just carbon copying every single Gravity Haus looks totally different. They all have different events. They all get involved in different ways, which I think is really cool just from the few that I've gotten to experience. So how are you ensuring that you're not a Starbucks, that you're still staying true to you and your core and your family and your values for what Gravity Haus should be?
I mean, it's people.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's all about the people. And people create connections. People deliver hospitality. And I say this to our team all the time. The tens of thousands of interactions that are happening every single day on our property that make people feel like they belong, to connect with them, to help them understand the experience and adventure they want to create, what moments they are, whether we're hosting a member's daughter's reception, which we did this weekend, that a Breckenridge member that actually is a Denver member. And I just sent him a great note because it was one of the most important moments in his life and his daughter's life that he entrusted with us to take care of. And all of those thousands and thousands and thousands of interactions, that builds the brand. That is hospitality. And you can't deliver that with inanimate objects. That's created by humans.
Yeah.
Right? People create connections. People are authentic to the community. People are the ones that deliver hospitality. And the culture and the values that we try to do at scale, I mean, that's hard, right? And I mean, look, Starbucks is a great example. They have 480,000 employees.
Yep.
And Howard's passion for the barista, the craft of being a barista, the pull of the espresso, he valued it and loved it so much and knew they were such an important part of the experience. It's the same for us at from the barista interaction to the housekeeper you might interact in the hallway or when they're cleaning a piece of gym equipment. Or of course, the front desk or our servers or our bartenders or our coaches that are driving you to get fitter and pushing you to accomplish your goals. That's really special.
Yeah.
And look, have we got it all right? No, I mean, we're working really hard and it's hard to scale culture and people.
Totally.
And who we hire and how we stay true to everything that we value. I mean, as we continue to reshape product positionings and offerings and things like that and open new places, none of the core values that built this company have ever changed. They're all still there and making sure. And I do think that's what attracts people. And the community starts with us and getting the momentum of our culture and treating our teammates like part of the community. You will see here, they work out here. Right?
Yeah.
You'll see them in our facilities. And that is part of who we are.
Yeah.
That's kind of the antithesis of luxury. You think Four Seasons employee can go sit in the hot tub with patrons?
No.
They'll be fired.
Which is like such an awful part, like we were saying, of that luxurious experience of like the robotic experience instead of just like the casualness and the friendship.
It's not real.
No, it's not. So it just feels like made up and stiff.
And I had that similar experience on the heli ski trip. When you're at CMH is the company. It's owned by Alterra, the Icon Pass. And at the lodge, the people that work the lodge, they're there for your session. They dine with you. They hang out with you. We do fun party games at the lodge after you. They were doing shot skis with Noah. And it's honestly, I love it because it's authentic.
Right.
It's real.
Right.
It's human. It's not, I'm different from you because I can afford to stay in this expensive room and you have to work in this expensive hotel.
And wait on my hand and foot.
Yeah, that's not, I don't know. That's just not, it feels less human to me.
Yeah.
It's certainly.
It is less human.
It's certainly inauthentic.
Right.
And I don't know, we really, look, we've got lots to do. We're trying to drive more perks. We let our employees stay at hotels for free. We want them to travel around. We let them use the amenities. And then, of course, as you highlighted, every location's different. And of course they are.
They have to be.
Big Sky is not the same as Vail.
No.
It's not the same as Winter Park. It's not the same as Truckee, California.
Right.
All these communities are extraordinarily unique and robust, and they're all their unique ways, right?
Right, and rich.
And I don't know about you. Like, I love that. I mean, that to me is the whole point of traveling.
Right.
I want to experience something different.
Right.
I want to, and I forget about that from our brand, from a traditional hotel perspective. A more traditional hotelier would be like, well, that Gravity Haus is not the same as this one. I'm like, of course not.
Yeah.
It's not the same community. It's not the same market. They're like, well, Winter Park is not the same as Aspen. I'm like, not even close.
Yeah, exactly.
They're all extraordinarily unique. And we try to, not try, I mean, we aspire, of course, to build both the physical plant and, of course, the people that run it to be unique to the community that we're in. And I think doing that over and over, I think is just a wild learning. It's just fun, right? Because that's how you experience and learn different things. How do they do it in Big Sky? What's it like there? What's the terrain like? What do people do? What are their topics? How do you avoid the big ass scary bears on the trails up the way? Like, I joke, we don't have really big ass scary bears in Colorado. There are bears, of course.
But not like
I'm going to get eaten by a bear in Colorado because I keep like making them sound like wimpy bears.
Just out of spite. Yeah, these bears, like I've heard you talking about.
I mean, the bears up there are scary.
I mean, the bears do listen to my podcast. So you might be screwed.
Bears, I love you.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I will drop crumbs.
No, but I mean, the community that you're delving into is just as important as the community of your members, as the community of people that are staying, as the community of the people that work here, your team.
Exactly.
It's all the community. So I think you would be doing that local community and the people coming to stay a disservice if you force some sort of like carbon copy everywhere you went.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think the starkest example, there's a bunch of stark examples, right? There's a lot of complications with mountain town stuff, right? Big Sky is very unique. So it's our newest market, right? We're getting ready to open here this summer. Hopefully we'll announce it soon. We'll be taking reservations in June. But look at what's happening in Big Sky. You have the Yellowstone Club. The Yellowstone Club is the definition of the wealthiest people
of luxury
in the world.
Yep.
Honestly, it's probably the pinnacle of 0.001 percenters.
Right.
Then you have two other major hubs onto that mountain, Moonlight Basin, Spanish Peaks. They're beautiful. They're more of your centimillionaire clubs.
Sure.
And then you go down to like the normal base. It's nothing special.
Right.
But then you go down to Big Sky Town Center. And let's just do the dynamics of these hotels. So you have Yellowstone, private club, Spanish Peaks, private club, Moonlight Basin, private club. And then they just built two new hotels there. Two of the most expensive hotels in the country. The first one and only in the United States just opened. I think the rates start at $6,000 a night. And then you have the Montage that just opened. And I'm sure you probably can't find a room.
We know about the Montage,
Yeah. And the Montage just opened. They're beautiful properties.
Of course.
And then we are opening in Big Sky Town Center. There's the Wilson Hotel, which is flagged a Residence Inn, Marriott flagged. Okay. And there was an old little lodge called the River Rock Lodge in the town that everyone forgot about. It was bought to be turned into employee housing for the construction workers for the Montage. And we were able to acquire it this past winter. And it's a little 30-key lodge. And instead of having to spend $6,000 or $1,200 or $700 a night, we underwrote this project at $300.
Wow.
And to be the authentic player in town, and it is cool, right? This property is going to turn out so neat.
It's going to be sick.
It's very sick, but it's not like from Bozeman, from us going to Colorado. Like, look, it's fun to blow some money at a Montage on occasion. No, nothing away from these great brands. These are great companies doing great things, but they're in a completely stratosphere of luxury that most of us are not going to play in.
No.
And nor do I, even if we could, out of principle, I don't know if I want to blow all that money just to sleep at night.
Totally.
Because I didn't go to Big Sky to
sleep.
Watch Netflix in a nice bed.
Exactly, yeah.
No doubt there's some great shows on Hulu and Netflix to watch.
But those can wait.
But I'll watch them at home.
Yeah.
When I want some downtime.
Yeah, exactly.
Not when I'm out checking out a new place and want to go have fun and ski my butt off and check out cool things in and around Big Sky. And that is a massive dichotomy.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the main hotels, right? There's Airbnbs and other things, and there's some other things at the base of the mountain. But I just use that as a big juxtaposition of what's happening in some of these markets.
Absolutely.
But we're trying to, again, stay true to our core, even as we launch in Aspen, right? We're not charging $100,000 initiation fee, and it's not $10,000 a year, right?
Sure.
It's still appropriately priced. It's at $400 a month,
right?
Versus a membership here in Vail is $200 a month,
right?
But it's not tens of thousands of dollars,
no,
right?
You're still staying true to your core while adjusting to the local community, but you're not ripping off the local community.
We're hopefully driving a ton of values and still
absolutely
can bring in, because
just so important.
Because paying for cool is not cool. You know what's cool? Authentic is cool. The starving artist is cool. You are cool. The people that come to these towns that figure it out and start companies and want to live the lifestyle, guess what? That's fucking cool.
Yeah.
And I want you to be part of our community. Not just the people that can foot the most expensive membership.
Right.
That's not cool. That's paid cool.
And inclusivity is cool.
I think
it's the coolest.
I think it is. And that's kind of weird about this brand, because we're not trying to be this like exclusive thing. Well, how do you be a club and not be exclusive? Like, look, we're looking for people that share values of all the things I've talked about for the last, I don't know how long we've been talking. We're having too much fun.
Yeah, I know.
Or maybe I'm just the one having fun.
No, I mean, I could do this for hours. Okay. I don't know how long it's been.
It's a weird thing that to try to build something like this and say, yeah, we're not trying to exclude people. Look, I want to exclude the douchebags.
Sure.
And the jerks of the world.
Yeah.
The people that don't want to share our values and don't want to respect the things that we care about in each other, and the idea that collecting experiences and connecting with each other outdoors is not valuable to them, then we're probably not the place for you.
Right.
Right. But there's a whole bunch of people I think do find great value in that. And we certainly don't want to make that inapproachable. I mean, it's exactly contrary to our brand to make it inaccessible to people that share those values. And certainly we want those people, even the ones that can't even afford it, we still work with people to make them be part of our community if
in
they
some
can.
way.
Yeah, it's some people it still might be out of range, and some people might say, well, fuck you, Jim, that's still too expensive. And I'm like, look, we'll work with you.
Right.
Look, we got to be in business. We got to pay bills and rents and mortgages and things like that.
Yep.
But we want to be inclusive. We want people to want to share our values and be additive to the community. We'll figure out how to work it out for people.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, and I think you answered that, how you're scaling and still staying true to the core values. It's very hands-on. You're really doing your research in every single place and figuring out a way that you can add to the community and bring something that doesn't exist in that specific location. And you're trying to bridge that gap. And sure, it's exclusive because it's members. But I mean, I've still walked into coffee shops and Cabin Juice or Boat Tow or places that I'm not members at, and I felt right at home.
100%.
You know?
And of course, like, Unravel After Dark has become a huge thing.
Yes.
I'm not sure if you've been to any of our Unravel After Darks.
I've been to one, yep.
And hopefully we start doing more of those in other locations.
Very
but it
cool.
became like the thing of Aspen was our after party in our coffee shop. For those that don't know, it's Unravel is our coffee concept. And we basically turn it into an after hours crazy rave party.
Yep.
DJs, and if you want to go NA, cool, there's cocktails serving. And yeah, it rages until the Aspen police.
The wee hours.
Until 2:00 in the morning.
No, but it's incredible. And I also love how you lean into those different things at the different locations. It seems like you're very open to, allowing me to come pop up,
totally.
At Unravel.
We got to do it again. I heard it went really well.
Oh my God. It's been some of my best some of the best pop-ups
Did you bring me a
done.
hat, by the way? Anybody who knows me, I'm a big hat wearer.
So I didn't know that you were a hat wearer, but I'm going to send you some stuff because I've got a crew neck that I think you'd really like.
All right.
And I've got hats that I think you'd really like. And that your daughters might like too. So I'm just going to send a whole package in.
Oh, sweet.
Yes. So don't worry.
I would love to support.
Oh, no, 100%.
And by the way,
we'll get the whole family in
one of my biggest helping other entrepreneurs on their journey, whether it's just hopefully maybe inspiring a few people that hopefully
I'm inspired.
Hopefully people that listen to this today.
Yeah.
I hope you feel inspired. Like it's fun. It's a journey. You're not alone. If you want a friend or pop a vice, find me running around one of the Gravity Haus properties or shoot me an email or what have you. It is a really fun thing. And by the way, you're doing it. You're doing exactly your version of what I did when I moved to Denver, when you left Alabama to come to Summit, and you're putting it together, right? That's to
Doing
me
my
is,
best.
yeah, and that's all you can do.
Yep.
And learning and growing and figuring it out.
Absolutely. And I love the journey. I mean, even, the hard times that we talk about, it's the moments like this where I get to spend my whole day just like having this conversation with you and learning from you, and getting to have these conversations is such a blessing. And it allows me to, I don't want to say get access to different people, but
Of course.
if I shot you an email and I was like, hey, like, can I call you? I just, I'm curious and I have a couple questions. But having a podcast, not only do I get to selfishly learn so much from you and hopefully call you a friend after this, but also then share your story with your audience and mine. And they get a whole new side to Gravity Haus and to you. And
it's an amazing tool. And that's when I listened to a couple of your podcasts before, agreeing, as we kind of talked about before in marketing, is like, oh no.
Yeah, too edgy.
We're all rebellious.
Yeah.
I'm like, I listen to Sarah's podcast. It sounds like people talking about business and entrepreneurship and inspiring women to be great entrepreneurs. Like, I'd love to be on it, and my daughters would listen to it.
Totally.
Right? And of course, I put everything through, like, what would mom say, or what would actually,
yes,
more of my kids than my mom.
Oh, yeah. Well, like I was
my
saying,
mom's far given up on me.
Yeah. I think my mom has too, but my parents are still so supportive. And like I said, that's the only opinion I care about.
Yeah, exactly. My mom's probably still like, I have no fucking idea what this guy does.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a little more tangible now.
Yeah.
Oh, Jim runs hotels.
But back in the day, yeah. Now she has something that she can actually tell her friends. Yeah. Where the time she's like, I don't really know what he's doing in that basement in Wash Park, but
not a clue.
He's supporting himself. So I think, we're doing something right.
Seems to be doing okay.
Well, and you have so much wisdom and you've been through so much. And I love how you're able to turn that into very tangible advice. So as we leave the listeners, is there any piece of advice or quote or book or anything currently that you feel like has really spoken to you?
Oh,
because you've given us a lot of nuggets.
I have given a few nuggets.
A lot of crumbs.
Man, I love listening to books. Like I'm an avid listener, reader, studier, learner. I mean, I would just tell people again, I think if I were to give any sort of final advice, is be courageous. Don't be afraid to step in or let go and learn. Like, be naive, be the beginner. It's okay.
Be dumb.
Yeah, it's hard. Honestly, it's like learning a new sport, learning a new skill.
Ego aside.
It is, I think, one of the hardest things, particularly in our culture, to look wrong, to look bad, to not look like the best of things. Like, it's the only way to learn. And the older we get, I think it's even feels more risky.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, oh, I don't want to look stupid. Like,
totally.
I don't want to.
Our egos get bigger.
Yeah, even if it's something as, look, I mean, I don't want to say silly, but learning how to snowboard or learning how to do this, like those are fun things, but they're hard and they're scary, and it sucks getting the shit kicked out of yourself trying to snowboard for the first time.
Yep.
But it'll be fun and it's worth it. Almost everything hard is rewarding, and surround yourself with other people who you think give you the right advice, not just what you want to hear. Like I kind of did that cautionary tale of, I was saying we need to change, and everybody else is saying we don't want to change, right?
Yeah.
So, it's a lot of things you say are a dichotomy, but what was I listening to most recently that I really found inspired by? I actually was listening to the Acquired podcast on Howard Schultz, which, I mean, Acquired's like the #1 podcast now
ever.
And I'm not like a huge follower of it, but one of my teammates sent it and said, you got to listen to Howard's podcast.
I'll have to listen to it.
And I actually love the stories he told, and his such passion and love for that company, and the stories of that he overcome to buy it, and all the people that he had to pitch to raise the money that said no. It's just fun to hear other people as successful as, I mean, it's a juggernaut, as successful as these people are.
Yeah.
And others who have been on the journey, like, forget the psychological phrase, but we're all going through it.
Yes.
Even at my level and what I've built and the exits I've had, like, I'm still learning too.
Yeah.
I'm still going
You're
through
still
it.
a
I still
student.
have shitty days and bad weeks, and we make mistakes and don't get everything right. And look, even now, Howard's going to tell you, like, Starbucks has lost its way again.
Yeah.
But the things that he talks about and being maniacally pissed about the smell of burning cheese and his book, I'm like, I fucking love that.
Yeah.
And he's crazy.
Yeah.
He loves it so much and cares so much about it. And if any of our teammates listen to it, they know I'm just obsessed about details and the experience and getting it right. And look, give yourself some patience. And when shit gets hard, what I was telling myself, be patient, be positive. You'll get on the other side of it. And I think that sort of message of hope and surrounding yourself with other people with positivity, and all the two of your podcasts that I did listen to, people were inspiring and positive, and hopefully we shared some of that joy and inspiration today.
100%.
And hopefully some of you all, maybe I'll meet you on a on a moonlight hike or a trail or at one of our
Absolutely.
coffee shops or dancing at Unravel After Dark.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, if you see Jim, you got to say what's up, right?
Oh,
Always.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
please say hi to me.
Yeah.
I'm actually not an extrovert, so I won't
Yeah.
I won't approach you, and I don't really drink anymore, so I'm usually the one slamming coffee
The
late
NAs. Yeah.
and doing NAs because back to that hangover thing, like I can't do hangovers
We can't do it
anymore.
anymore. We got too much going
I
on.
I want to be performing way too high level, so
Same.
I'm much more on the. We got some really fun NA shit going on.
Oh,
So
nice. That's cool.
we have tons of NA cocktails and NA stuff. Although our espresso martinis, I hear, are best espresso. I'll give it an espresso martini commercial.
I will say I'm not a big espresso martini drinker, but I've had your espresso martinis. They're amazing.
I've heard we are literally have one of the best espresso martinis.
Yeah, and that is a feat. That is tough. That is tough to do.
And I too will participate in my espresso martinis. But
Yeah.
I do not.
But
drink,
everything else.
I do not drink 2 or 3 anymore.
Yes, yeah, not anymore. Well, Jim, thank you so much for taking the time. This
Are you
was
kidding me? I'm so glad we got to do
so
this.
much fun, and I'm so happy we got to meet and share your story. And I mean, I'm feeling so inspired. I know that our audience is as well. So I really appreciate it.
Great joy. Thank you so much for making the time for me and checking out Vail.
Oh, absolutely. In this most beautiful place. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. Really appreciate it. And I will chat with y'all next Thursday. See ya. Bye. All right, and that is a wrap on this week's episode. Obviously, you guys heard everywhere that you can go to Gravity Haus is near you. So please, please, please check it out. And I'm sure you will see everything that he talked about in this episode really coming to life. It is such a special collection of properties and hotels and communities. And I think the ethos of the company really speak to the experience. So I'm curious to see what you guys think. But thank you guys so much for listening. This was so much fun. If you're new here, we drop new episodes every single Thursday. Been doing this for a while. So if you want to backtrack and catch up on past episodes, we've had so many amazing founders, creatives, creators, locals, solo episodes of myself, which are pretty amazing, and such as and so forth. And I think you guys really like it. So definitely stick around. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including YouTube, where you can watch us as well, if that's your cup of tea. Follow us on Instagram at Raw Intentions Podcast. Leave us a like, rating, or review anywhere you listen, just so we continue to grow and reach new audiences. And that's all I got. So thank you guys so much, and I will chat with y'all next week. See ya.